Perfect. Thank you so much. So my name is Fiona Dragstra. I'm the director of the WageIndicator Foundation, and I will be walking you through this lovely webinar today. Like I mentioned, please mute yourself when others are speaking, but feel free to really enjoy and engage in the debate. If your connection allows it, we would love to see your face. So please feel free to turn on your video if you can. We also would love to know where you're calling in from today. So if you can, please introduce yourself in the chat and let us know who you are and where you're calling in from. Like I mentioned, feel free to really ask any questions and all thoughts that you have in the chat. We'll be recording this webinar also for learning purposes for a lot of different other organizations that cannot be with us today. But we like to share what it is that we come up together collectively. We have a lot of different people in the room with from different organizations and different worldviews and also different time zones. So please be mindful of each other and respect each other's opinion. This is an open debate for knowledge sharing purposes. So please engage as such. In addition, this is also a note to myself. We do have Bahasa translation today, so please try to speak slow and articulate as such that many can properly interpret what everybody is saying today. That being said, please enjoy and join the debate. That's what we're here for today. So today we have a packed agenda with two main panels and a brief introduction of why we should be here together today. So we are discussing pay and regulations in light of the platform, the draft platform convention that is under discussion at the ILC this year, and we have a nice debate on pay and remuneration and also the classification of workers, and a discussion on existing and upcoming regulations around gig and platform work around the world, and with some expert interventions. During these two panels, there's plenty of room to ask questions and enjoy and engage in the debate, so we have space for that. A brief overview of our speakers today. I'll be leading you through the day and we'll be cutting you off if you speak too much. We have Pauline Ossa, who is the co-founder of WageIndicator and lead Living Wages. We have Iftikhar Ahmad, who's lead labor law at WageIndicator. We have Suci Lestari, who's a researcher from Indonesia who works a lot with female platform workers and gig workers across Indonesia. So we also hope, Suci, that you can share some experiences from female platform workers and how they organize. And we have a great set of platform workers and organizers from all across the world with us today, as well as a representation from home-based workers. We have Abdul Rahman from the Federation of Sindh home-based workers in Pakistan. We have Asad Mehmood from one of the largest organized platform and gig worker unions in the world, I would say. We have Taha Syafaril, who's the leader of the Asosiasi Driver Online from Indonesia. We have Wuri Ramawati, who's the leader of the Wada Komunikasi Driver Actief. And we have Biju Mathew from the International Alliance of App-Based Transport Workers with us today. That being said, why should we be discussing this topic today? As many of you know, we have, during the upcoming International Labour Congress meeting in June in Geneva, which is a yearly event, there is the proposal for a draft platform workers convention that's on the agenda. It's point number 5 in a very long agenda, but we do think it's a very significant moment in time where actually workers last year, the Workers' Coalition has actually achieved to put this on the agenda at the ILC for the first time towards a draft convention, which is significant and which also means that we have the opportunity to discuss and see what could be part of this convention and for whom this convention could apply. In principle, the scope of the draft convention looks as such that it can apply to all workers, whether they are in an employment relationship or self-employed, and that it should apply for both location-based and web-based workers, platform workers. In the text draft, there is references to occupational health and safety, employment status, data protection, and also pay and remuneration. And there's a few items that we will be taking out from that today. In principle, in the run-up to the ILC in June, there's widespread agreement that the instrument, so the convention, should ensure the proper classification of platform workers, emphasizing the primary effects principle, which prioritizes the reality of the working relationship over contractual labels, which we think is good because it allows more and more people to not fall through the cracks, but actually look at the working relation that happens. In addition, and this very nice graph I stole from Monica from the ITUC, there is a need for us to discuss remuneration and payments, which are mentioned in at least a few articles in the draft convention now, where it's not completely sure yet whether all of the principles should apply to all, whether it should only apply to employees, or that the protection should also be extended to self-employees or so to self-employed. And what we will be discussing today is the importance of ensuring that there's a minimum floor, as such that people don't fall through this floor, because the more we complicate it, the more there's a chance that people fall through. One final thing that you'll hear from me and as an introduction is that as part of this discussion, if there is a draft convention that comes out of the meeting in June, this also means that national countries or countries and national offices will, if they sign on to this convention, will have to translate this to national law and regulations. This is exactly the reason why Iftikhar and his team are tracking which regulations actually are already in place at the moment in countries, and also what a convention like this could change for national regulation when it comes to platform work. We're therefore also grateful to have speakers from Pakistan here, because there are some regulations already happening in Pakistan, I think. And one of the things is that we see, and why it's important to be talking about pay and remuneration also in relation to working time, is because if people get income, have costs, but this doesn't align with each other, there will be an increase of working time consistently, which might not match with other ILO conventions. So there's a good chance, hopefully, that this convention will be in relation with other conventions of the ILO, but that's up to discussion. I am quickly checking, Valeria, if Pauline is also here, because I would like us to move to the next panel, and there she has a small presentation. Not yet, huh? Okay.
Not yet.
That's not a problem. Then I am happy to take over this piece. So before we move into the panel that discusses pay, which I was hoping Pauline would do this presentation. Now I'm talking a lot. I'm sorry about that. So one of the key reasons why we as WageIndicator focus on both platform work as well as living wages or living tariff in our sense, is that as we know, and this should not be something strange for all people in the room here, but there's around 40 million people in lower and middle income countries that earn their income in the gig economy and platform work. But work there is often characterized by precarious employment, economic insecurity, and a lack of access to formal labor rights and minimum wage guarantees. That also means that gig workers are often classified as independent contractors, which deprives them of fundamental rights that are listed in many of the ILO conventions. Many of these workers struggle to assess their actual wages or wages that are sufficient enough for them to feed their families due to limited experience, unreliable information, and hidden or indirect costs such as long waiting times, cancellations, and penalties. As we know, and luckily, the ILO has actually last year came with some conclusions and has set principles for how to look at living wages and how to look at wage setting, which includes living wages. So we would be happy to start looking at the concept of a living wage and extend this also to the discussion around this platform work directive. The living wage, as denoted by the ILO, is a remuneration that is sufficient for a decent standard of living for a worker and their family. It's a family concept, covering essential needs like food, housing, education, healthcare, and provision for unexpected events. And it's something that you can relate to the statutory minimum wage, but is not the same, of course, because the living wage is not the law, but we use it as a concept. As wage indicator, what we're looking at is that we want to introduce in the discussion around pay and remuneration for the platform workers, the concept of a living tariff. And I know the word tariff in the US context is a bit difficult, but in other countries it works. But the idea is that the living tariff is a rate for a gig or platform worker that they could charge for their services, ensuring the concept of a living wage while factoring in the costs that are linked to them delivering the service. What does that mean? It's basically, the estimate is basically based on wage indicator living wage estimates, which are fixed costs based on prices, which cover, for example, like I mentioned, housing, education, healthcare, all of those items. And we also incorporate variable costs and mandatory taxes that self-employed need to pay. The other variable costs can be, for example, work-related equipment, such as buying or renting a motorbike or needing gas in order to be able to drive people around. Communication costs that are much higher than regular, such as having a mobile phone, a good laptop, or high-speed internet. And calculating for unpaid working time, such as waiting time, but also acquisition and searching new gigs. So the way that we are looking at the discussion around pay and remuneration for platform work is with the concept that we would like to introduce the living tariff, which is basically the concept of a living wage for self-employed and gig work and platform workers. So I will leave you with that. But with this, I would like to introduce our first panel of today. And then Valeria and I will highlight everybody that is there for this first panel. So Pauline is not here. That's unfortunate. But I can explain to you everything around pay and our living wage concept, if you will. But I'm very happy to introduce to you all Asad Mehmood. I will spotlight you now. Can we spotlight him? Yes.
Yes.
Yes, very nice. Asad Mehmood, and we have with us Taha, and Wuri.
Mbak Wuri, Pak
Ya,
Taha.
ya.
Oke. Mbak
Ya,
Wuri.
ya.
Sudah.
Oke.
Bisa.
Ya, bisa.
Bisa.
Okay. Great. And I know it's still very early on your side, Biju, but Biju, if you have enough coffee in your system to come and talk with us, you're welcome to join us here as well. And initially, the first thing that I would like to ask you is when it comes to, so Asad, you are one of the leaders of one of the largest platform worker unions in Pakistan and perhaps even across the world. Can you share with us some of your experiences on discussing pay and remuneration with the workers that you represent, and also the importance of this topic in the run-up to the ILC?
Thank you so much. First of all, I thanks to give us a platform to raise the issues and introduce the platform workers at the international level. My name is Asad Mehmood. I am the General Secretary of Pakistan Platform and Grid Worker Unions, which is registered now in the last month. But I think the credit goes to the brother Iftikhar, also a part of our meetings. And the credit goes to the Punjab governments and the other stakeholders. Now in Pakistan, Punjab Labour Code also promulgated, and in which first time in the history of Pakistan, in the Punjab Labour Code, the gig workers, platform workers protected under the law. So we have now freedom of association and right to collective bargaining. But I hope that in the near coming days we will wait for the implementation of that labor codes. On the background of the platform workers in Pakistan, more than 700,000 platform workers working in the different types of work, like food delivery, like in the ride hailing and transport, and the in-drive, or the some other sectors platform workers are working. But the lack of legislation in job security and many other challenges, the platform workers faced many difficulties. So I'm also a General Secretary of Pakistan Workers Federation, which is the most representative organizations of workers at national level. So we thought that the platform workers and the gig workers are also in deep trouble. So we try to organize that workers. We started campaign, and we collect data from the different cities of the country for that workers who work like a platform workers. So we have data of different platform workers. Then we started a campaign for organizing. We held a different meeting for awareness. First, in the first instance, we give awareness to the platform workers. What are the challenges? How we organize the platform workers, and how we started a lobbying and advocacy for the stakeholders to for the legislation of the platform workers. So our teams and our organizers working in the different cities of the country, and finally we collect the data in the first stage. We collect the data of more than 1,000 workers. In that kind of workers face different problems, like no social security, no contract with the employer of the platform workers. So the wages are the main problems, because workers are working online, but the company or employer or contractor not paid to the wages to the workers, and they earned a low wages. Like other way, like InDrive or Kareem or some other platform workers working in that kind of work, the company like Uber, InDrive, and other companies pay to the platform workers is very low. So the main profit goes to that companies, but the worker face difficulties. So no social protection. Even in Pakistan, many workers died in the accident during the working hours, like food delivery workers and the in-drive workers and bikia workers who worked on the bike transport. So there is no registration anywhere in the social institution. So my organization is also working for that. And now after the promulgations of the Punjab Labour Code, we will hope that all the platform workers in Pakistan now enjoy the freedom of association and also a collective bargaining. But like in Pakistan, it's a very new subject and a very new type of workforce in Pakistan. So in the first class, we need to give awareness to the platform workers aware, but that in this condition and in situation without any law and without any job security, worker faced fear, worker faced difficulties. So we will need to organize more workers, and I hope that the Pakistan Workers Federation and the Pakistan Platform and Grid Workers Union will work in the future in the coming days with the support of other like-minded organizations. And the main issue that the minimum wage or the wage setting. So we will negotiate with the stakeholders. We will negotiate with the companies to fix the wages and the other issues like registration in the Employees Old Age Benefit Institute, in Social Security, in Worker Welfare Fund, and all other social safety nets. So we will work in future, and we will hope that we save the future of the platform workers.
Thank you, Asad. Thank you so much. I'll come back to you with a question around what you mentioned around the minimum wage and the income that workers at the moment receive. But thank you so much for putting in that context. Vale, can you keep Asad with us? Because I would like to ask him another question. And I would also like to ask if Taha and Wuri can open their video and join us for the conversation. Wuri, can you hear us? Yes.
Bisa.
Okay, so everybody that doesn't speak Bahasa,
Bisa
please
tapi
please set in on your translation button the translation option for English. Please click English. Then Taha, first a question for you. Can you briefly introduce your union and also why the topic of discussing a minimum income floor is so important for the workers that you represent?
Ya, terima kasih. Selamat pagi, siang, malam semuanya. Saya merasa bangga sekali berada di tengah-tengah Anda semuanya. Di sini ada mentor saya, Mr. Biju Mathew, dan juga Mbak Suci Yuana yang selama ini selalu membantu pergerakan organisasi saya di Indonesia. Nama saya Taha Syafaril. Saya 2 tahun setengah ini saya sudah tidak aktif lagi menjadi pengemudi taksi online karena kondisi saya waktu itu sempat sakit, punggung saya atau tulang belakang saya sering sakit sehingga saya harus berhenti menyetir. Tapi saya saat ini saya memilih untuk terus berada dalam perjuangan bersama teman-teman. Saya juga merupakan seorang ketua umum Asosiasi Driver Online atau ADO di Indonesia. Ya, karena pengalaman kami di model bisnis perusahaan aplikasi ini memang sejak awal perusahaan aplikasi di Indonesia tidak pernah mengakui sebuah hubungan kerja antara kami dengan mereka. Jadi mereka menolak menjadi seorang majikan atau bos kami, tetapi tentu melalui algoritma dan sistem aplikasi mereka sangat mengatur kita. Semua aspek pekerjaan kita di bawah kendali dan arahan sistem aplikasi yang dibuat oleh perusahaan aplikasi. Catatan lain, saat ini walaupun kita mungkin bagi pengendara roda 2 dan taksi online atau kendaraan roda 4 di Indonesia mendapatkan penghasilan yang mungkin boleh dikatakan cukup dalam satu hari, tetapi kami harus melakukan waktu kerja yang panjang, antara 10 sampai 12 jam. Tentu dengan memperpanjang waktu tersebut, kita mendapatkan biaya operasional yang bertambah dan juga resiko pekerjaan yang bertambah juga. Jadi dengan bertambahnya jam kerja itu kita memiliki risiko dan biaya operasional yang juga bertambah. Dan juga biaya operasional yang harus kita keluarkan dalam setiap hari itu juga selalu menjadi hambatan kita untuk mendapatkan penghasilan yang cukup sebagai driver sebagai pengemudi platform di Indonesia. Yang paling berbahaya adalah pada saat kita mungkin menerima sekitar 250.000 atau 500.000 dalam satu hari, kita bekerja selama hampir 12 jam, ditambah lagi kita harus ditawarkan oleh perusahaan aplikasi semacam insentif bonus yang harus dikejar dalam satu hari, di mana memang seolah-olah dalam mendapatkan insentif bonus yang ditawarkan oleh perusahaan aplikasi tersebut, kita akan mendapatkan penghasilan yang cukup. Tetapi mayoritas atau banyak di antara kita tidak mendapatkan insentif bonus itu sama sekali karena memang kita terbatas oleh sebuah kelelahan dan waktu istirahat yang tidak mungkin kita terus kejar dalam satu bulan insentif bonus yang ditawarkan oleh Grab dan Gojek di Indonesia. Sebenarnya apa yang kita inginkan hanya sederhana saja. Sebenarnya kita di Indonesia kepingin mendapatkan pendapatan layak, standar pendapatan layak di Indonesia. Dan tentu kami berharap perusahaan aplikasi bisa mengurangi potongannya yang sekarang di Indonesia mungkin antara 25 sampai 35%. Jadi memang saat ini bagi Indonesia di Asia Tenggara adalah negara pertama yang mungkin yang paling besar keberadaan pengemudi platform di Asia Tenggara mungkin. Yang pertama Indonesia kalau di Asia Tenggara yang saya baca, yang kedua adalah Filipina. Nah, sayangnya di Asia Tenggara, Malaysia dan Singapura sudah membuat regulasi soal platform ekonomi, pekerja platform, sehingga mungkin di Indonesia hal ini sangat kami tunggu keberadaan atau inisiatif pemerintah kami untuk berada di tengah-tengah kita mengatur regulasinya.
Thank you.
Dalam pembahasan sedikit lagi dalam pembahasan konvensi ILO ke depan. Ya, oke. Saya berharap aplikasi pekerjaan berbasis aplikasi ini diakui dalam kerangka hukum ketenaga kerjaan dan supaya berharap ketimpangan antara situasi perusahaan aplikasi dengan pengemudi platform di Indonesia bisa dikurangi, terutama untuk di Indonesia. Terima kasih.
Thank you so much, Taha, for this experience, and also very important that you're sharing about how there's these incentives for getting bonuses, and then there's deductions from your pay. So even though you work 12 hours or 10 or 12 hours, it's still sometimes a race against the clock to get your minimum income that you need for the day, right? Thank you for sharing that. Wuri, I'm now turning to you. I'm happy to have a female in our midst today. Could you share from your union and your experience, especially when it comes to pay and income, how you see the workers that you represent deal with them trying to get enough money to support themselves and their families, and what are the major issues that they run into on a daily or weekly or monthly basis?
Halo, selamat malam. Perkenalkan, saya Wuri, biasa dipanggil Wuri. Saya sangat bangga berada di forum ini, dan di sini ada kakak saya, Mbak Nana, yang selalu konsisten memperjuangkan nasib driver online di Indonesia. Saya adalah seorang ibu dengan 2 anak. Sudah hampir 9 tahun saya menjadi pengemudi ojek online. Ini sebelumnya saya mohon maaf, saya tidak on cam karena sinyal di Jogja sedang hujan dan kurang bagus. Mohon maaf nggih. Saya masuk menjadi ojek online ini bukan karena sebuah pilihan yang ideal bagi saya, tapi karena memang tidak ada banyak pilihan lain. Saya juga menjadi ketua dari sebuah organisasi yaitu Wakanda, Wadah Komunikasi Driver Aktif yang ada di Yogyakarta. Kami sering disebut mitra, tapi sebenarnya saya hanya ingin bertanya, mitra mana yang tidak punya kuasa menentukan tarif, aturan, bahkan nasib kerjanya sendiri. Setiap hari saya bekerja 10-12 jam di jalan, tapi setelah dipotong bensin, makan, dan kebutuhan operasional, penghasilan bersih saya sering hanya 70.000 sampai 120.000 per hari. Kalau didolarkan itu menjadi 4 sampai 8 dolar per hari. Itu belum termasuk biaya servis motor. Jadi sebenarnya yang menanggung biaya produksi itu kami, para driver, dan bukan perusahaan. Yang mengatur kerja kami sebagai driver itu sebenarnya bukan manusia, tapi algoritma. Dia menentukan siapa yang dapat order dan siapa yang tidak dapat order. Tapi kami sebagai driver tidak pernah tahu bagaimana cara kerjanya. Algoritma itu tidak transparan, tidak bisa digugat. Kalau tiba-tiba order sepi, kami hanya bisa menebak-nebak. Ini bagi kami bukan sebuah kemitraan, tapi adalah relasi kekuasaan yang timpang. Sebagai perempuan, tekanannya lebih berlapis. Saya tidak bisa bekerja non-stop seperti sebagian driver laki-laki, karena saya juga harus mengurus anak. Tapi setiap kali saya off untuk urusan keluarga, sistem seperti sedang menghukum saya. Besoknya order menjauh, akun menjadi anyep. Seolah-olah menjadi ibu itu dianggap suatu kesalahan. Di jalan, kami juga menghadapi resiko yang tidak pernah benar-benar diakui platform. Pelecehan, rasa tidak aman, bahkan ancaman kekerasan. Banyak dari kami memilih ambil order makanan atau barang demi keamanan. Tapi konsekuensinya, penghasilan bisa lebih kecil, karena tarif di orderan makanan dan barang itu sangat minim. Apalagi dengan adanya double dan triple order yang hanya mendapat tambahan tarif 1.000 sampai 2.000 per titik. Belum lagi kami dikejar waktu dalam mengambil orderan serta mengantarkan orderan, sehingga di jalan kami sering tergesa-gesa dan banyak dari rekan-rekan kami yang mengalami kecelakaan karena aturan dari platform yang mengharuskan kami segera cepat sampai ke pelanggan. Jika tidak, maka kami akan mendapatkan penalti berupa poin ataupun bisa di-cancel orderan oleh sistem. Jadi, kami dipaksa memilih antara rasa aman atau hanya untuk cukup makan. Selain itu, untuk perempuan, banyak diskriminasi dari penumpang. Seringkali order dibatalkan hanya karena saya perempuan, tanpa alasan yang jelas. Dan setiap cancel dari penumpang itu berdampak pada performa kami. Akun kami menjadi makin sepi. Kami dirugikan 2 kali secara ekonomi dan juga secara martabat. Sampai ada kondisi di mana kami, driver perempuan, merasa harus minta izin untuk bekerja. Kami terpaksa mengirim pesan kepada customer seperti, maaf saya driver perempuan, tidak apa-apa ya. Mohon maaf saya driver perempuan, jangan di-cancel ya, hanya supaya orderan kami tidak di-cancel. Bayangkan, untuk bekerja saja kami harus meminta persetujuan atas gender kami sendiri. Belum lagi program-program platform yang mengkotak-kotakkan driver, yang menjadikan pendapatan driver menjadi terbatas. Ada juga program berbayar yang memotong tarif kita dengan dalih biaya langganan. Kami bekerja untuk mendapatkan penghasilan, akan tetapi alih-alih kami malah disuruh membayar agar akun kami mendapat orderan. Semua resiko ada di kami. Sakit, kecelakaan, motor rusak, semua kami tanggung sendiri. Tidak ada jaminan kerja, jaminan mendapatkan orderan, kepastian penghasilan, dan tidak ada perlindungan yang layak. Tapi perusahaan tetap mengambil keuntungan dari kami setiap hari. Ini bukan sekedar soal kerja fleksibel. Ini adalah bentuk baru dari eksploitasi yang dibungkus teknologi, dan dalam kasus kami juga memperkuat ketidakadilan gender. Saya dan teman-teman tidak butuh janji. Saya dan teman-teman hanya butuh perubahan yang nyata. Dari kami, para driver sebenarnya hanya menuntut transparansi algoritma. Kami berhak tahu bagaimana sistem menentukan order dan insentif. Dan penghapusan penalti tersembunyi. Jangan hukum kami karena kami punya tanggung jawab seorang ibu. Serta perlindungan kerja yang nyata, seperti jaminan kesehatan, jaminan kecelakaan, dan juga standar pendapatan minimum untuk semua jenis orderan dari semua platform. Kalau negara dan perusahaan terus menutup mata seperti ini, maka jangan lagi sebut kami mitra. Kami adalah pekerja yang menopang ekonomi digital ini, tapi kami diperlakukan seolah-olah tidak terlihat. Kami bukan robot dan kami tidak akan diam. Perjuangan akan terus kami lakukan agar kami mendapatkan penghasilan yang layak dan diakui oleh negara. Selamat malam. Seperti itu.
Thank you so much, Wuri. And I see where you got your fighting spirit. Yuana is glowing with pride, I see. Thank you so much for sharing this. And thank you also for sharing how you have additional family burdens and responsibilities as a female platform worker that really adds on even family responsibility, your time you have in a day, and the ability to earn an income also for your family. Thank you so much. I am very happy that we had this wonderful set of experiences already from the group. Is there anybody in the audience that has a question for Taha, Wuri, or Asad that they would like to ask before I ask another question? Feel free to raise your hand, shout, whatever. Biju, I see you coming in. You want to say something? Welcome.
Whenever, give me the whenever you're ready, I'm ready to put in my input. Yes.
If you want, you're welcome to share. Good morning.
Go ahead. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you well.
Okay, so why don't you finish with the questions first? The questions that you have for Wuri and Taha and Asad.
Yeah.
And I'll come in after that.
Great.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Wuri, so you couldn't have said it better than anyone else. Really perfect. What is the final solution? Would you like to have, let's say, a formal job at a platform with a formal minimum wage or living wage? Is that the solution? Or maybe a living tariff where you take care yourself for social security and pension? What is it? There are basically two ways. Either you get employed by the platform, or you do it yourself, but your income is much higher because you have to organize your social security yourself. What do you think is the best? That you need dignity is obviously, but what is the smartest way, do you think? Translation?
Yes. Wuri, did you hear?
Okay.
Yes, go ahead.
Oh ya, bisa. Oke. Untuk menurut saya pribadi, untuk hal-hal yang saya sampaikan tadi, itu yang terbaik itu sebenarnya ada pendapatan minimum untuk seluruh pekerja platform. Jadi dari platform tidak memberikan tarif yang semena-mena untuk para driver, baik dari orderan pengantaran makanan dan barang ataupun dari penumpang, seperti itu.
So minimum wage is one part, but would you like to be employed by the platform as well? That you have a job at the platform, a formal job?
Kalau untuk saat ini, untuk menjadi pekerja formal, bagi teman-teman saya yang aktif di pergerakan masih dalam pertimbangan karena satu, kita mempertimbangkan fleksibilitas waktu serta umur dan aturan-aturan lain mungkin yang seperti pekerja formal pada umumnya. Jadi untuk saat ini memang kami baru melihat dulu aturan-aturan tentang pekerja formal untuk pekerja gig itu seperti apa. Seperti itu.
Mm-hmm. But you could just demand and say, well, I want a formal job. Like for instance, there are many countries where flexibility, let's say our jobs for a couple of hours is also possible. So then you are flexible, but you're also employed by a platform, for instance. So that could be, so we could discuss that.
Maybe this is a good question also for Asad and Taha. Asad, maybe looking at the experience from your from the workers that you represent, do you hear from them that they would like to be employed, or rather that they stay independent but that they have a minimum minimum social protection and income? What's your experience?
Yes. Okay. Thank you so much. In Pakistan, I think the mostly platform workers working without any contract with the employer. So that implies working on the independent basis. So I earlier I explained that recently the Punjab Labour Code legally covered to the all platform workers. So after the implementation of that law, the Minimum Wage Act or law implement on the platform workers, and that workers who sign the contract with the employer cover the minimum wage law. So in the Pakistan, the minimum wage on the other sectors also are applicable, but now recently, according to the new law, the minimum wage cover the platform workers. So in the past, no minimum wage for the platform workers. So the platform workers earn below the minimum wage. And after that legal protection, I think when the law will implement on the platform workers, two things are very important. One is the minimum wage, and second, protection in the social safety net. So after the signing the contract with the employer, the platform workers also secure and registered in the social security and the other social safety nets. So that law also a benchmark law for the platform workers.
Thank you, Asad. Maybe Taha, one small reflection from you before I have Robert and Tilak ask their question.
Ya, bagi kami di Indonesia sebenarnya untuk ojek online yang roda 2 itu sebenarnya sudah beberapa kali dilakukan penyesuaian tarif. Tetapi untuk roda 4, terutama driver yang memiliki mobil sendiri, kita menamakan diri kita adalah driver individu, yang memiliki atau kita menguasai mobil kita sendiri dengan membayar sewa atau memang ini kita cicil di bank, kita menyicil mobil kita di bank, itu belum pernah dilakukan penyesuaian tarif sejak 2017. Jadi 1 kilometer itu cuman Rp2.800. Saya nggak tahu kira-kira itu berapa sen dolar ya. Mungkin sekitar 10 sampai 20 dolar. Saya kurang paham, maaf. 2.800 per kilometer ini sebenarnya sudah sangat di bawah biaya operasional yang harus kita keluarkan. Nah, padahal di Jakarta, di kota-kota besar yang sudah ada taksi konvensional yang berplat kuning, yang memang dia adalah kendaraan umum yang menggunakan argometer, itu pemerintah Indonesia menetapkan 4.500 per kilometer. Jadi bedanya jauh sekali antara harga taksi konvensional dengan taksi online. Nah, tentu masyarakat Indonesia menikmati pemesanan mereka terhadap kami taksi online karena harga kami murah sekali gitu. Nah, dari pengalaman ini sebenarnya bahwa perusahaan aplikasi menetapkan tarifnya sendiri sesuai keinginan mereka, itu karena mereka menawarkan insentif bonus tersebut kepada kami. Jadi itulah yang akhirnya kita kejar setiap hari. Jadi kita seperti robot, seperti zombie yang bekerja mengikuti insentif bonus di area tertentu, di jam tertentu. Kita harus ada di situ dan kita harus selalu melihat handphone kita selama berjam-jam untuk mendapatkan order masuk, pesanan masuk. Jadi buat kami sebenarnya uang yang kita terima itu harusnya sudah mampu membayar biaya pengeluaran operasional kita. Nah, itu baru dikatakan ada itu pendapatan. Jadi selama ini kita belum pernah merasakan pendapatan itu karena kita terus bayar biaya operasional yang jauh lebih besar dari yang kita terima dari perusahaan aplikasi. Terima kasih.
Yeah. Thank you, Taha. Basically, you say that the tariff that you now earn is not even sufficient to cover your operational costs. Let alone, and I see everybody nodding, so I assume that Wuri and Asad have the same experience. Tilak and Robert, can I ask you to quickly ask your question or share your experience, whatever you want, and then we do a final round. Tilak, go ahead.
Thank you, Fiona, providing this opportunity to learn from other countries' experiences. Am I audible?
Yes, you are. Go ahead.
Okay, great. So my name is Tilak. I work for Uni Asia Pacific, and I'm based in Kathmandu, Nepal. And as an organizing director, I work in several sectors within Uni's framework. And these gig workers are under our jurisdiction as well for logistics and food delivery, particularly. And then my question is to you, particularly Fiona, do you have any experiences or any practices that their earnings, net earnings, not gross transactions, particularly, if there is any in the world through the wage indicators, it would be great resources for us. Second one, to all my three respected panelists, thank you so much for a great experience that you are sharing. Particularly, organizing is a great challenge as well. We understand that. Have you done any kind of social dialogue, any kind of discussions with the employers, with the platform owners that operate in your country? Or is there any progress on such dialogues with the government, particularly the Department of Labor or the Labor Ministry or the Ministry of Employment, whoever is the responsible to determine these things? It would be a great sharing for other countries as well, because they are still facing difficulties to recognize them as a workers, while Brother Asad said that it was very difficult to even register as a union, associations there. So this is my questions to you and all my three panelists, respected panelists. Thank you so much, Fiona.
Thank you, Tilak. And I'll get to your question on gross net in the chat and let the others respond. Robert, do you also quickly want to ask your question?
Hi, thank you so much. It's lovely what I'm hearing here, but at the same time, I have my past experience, like 18 months of delivering, and it's not so lovely at the same time. I would like first just to share something with Tilak. Just found the link, a very interesting article rating what he said earlier, that if you know something related with European situation and what's happening, what discussions are at this point. This is an article that just came out like 10-15 minutes ago. What I wanted to add, and that's all, not a question, is I remember that when I started delivering because I wanted to have a flexible time. And I wanted, in my perspective, I didn't thought like I need a minimum wage. I didn't thought that I need a living wage. I was just thinking that, okay, I will start delivering and I will be able to cover every expenses, and it will be better than minimum wage, because in the end, we are not speaking about minimum wage here. We are speaking about people who are shown as self-employed, people who are shown as own bosses. So in the end, it's not just minimum wage, it's not just living wage, it's above all because we are own bosses, so we need some profit on this. So we have operational costs, we have our time, we have exactly how Taha said, we are at every hour during the week. Exactly how Wuri said at the same time, that in the end we need to think about not everybody wants to be a boss, but at least to have possibility to cover our expense. That's all from my side.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you so much. Asad, Wuri, maybe small reflection on Tilak's question on social dialogue with either the platforms or with the government, or together maybe, who knows. And then I would like to round off this panel by giving the floor to Biju to share his experience on actually being able to negotiate a minimum tariff in New York. But first, Asad, Wuri, please.
Thank you. Brother Tilak. I reply to your second question, especially. According to my experience, I think that the platform workers need to contact with the national centers, the representative of workers' organizations. In 2022, we consult with the stakeholders, we consult with the governments, because I explained one just background that in 2010, the powers and authorities goes to the provincial level. So in Pakistan, the legislation at the provincial level. So in the federal government, the Pakistan Workers Federation leadership met with the stakeholders and the governments. So we moved the bill, namely Islamabad Platform Workers Protection Bill, for legislation to the for platform of the Parliament, the National Assembly. So in the Punjab Assembly, in the one of our biggest province, Brother Iftikhar also part of this meeting, part of that legislation. So our national center met with the stakeholders and the government representative. So we moved the bill and we moved the law for the legislation to the platform. So I think that according to my point of view, any country, the platform workers where the law not protect to that kind of worker, so the platform workers need to contact with the national centers, and then national centers also held meetings with the stakeholders and government for the legislation and the law for the platform workers. It's my experience.
Thank you so much. Wuri, I'm going to give you the final floor of this panel. Do you have any experience doing social dialogue, either with the platforms or the government?
Ya, terima kasih. Dari organisasi kami sudah melakukan beberapa kali dialog ataupun diskusi dengan platform ataupun dengan pemerintah. Akan tetapi karena kami posisinya ada di daerah dan semua kewenangan itu ada di pusat, dan daerah tidak punya kewenangan untuk menentukan tarif atau kebijakan tentang driver online yang ada di daerah, sehingga kami hanya terbatas di daerah. Dan perjuangan kami sudah sampai ke pusat di tahun 2025 kemarin, sudah sampai di rapat dengar pendapat dengan Komisi 5 DPR RI, akan tetapi sampai saat ini belum ada kejelasan tentang Undang-Undang Transportasi Online. Dan tahun kemarin di bulan November, kami juga berangkat dari Jogja ke Jakarta untuk bertemu dengan para pejabat pemerintah, DPR RI, dan Kemenhub tentang Undang-Undang Transportasi Online serta kebijakan-kebijakan lain Dan kami hanya dijanjikan janji-janji yang sampai saat ini pun belum pernah terwujud. Jadi perjuangan di transportasi online ini di Indonesia sebenarnya sudah 10 tahun tidak berujung. Selalu berhenti di pemerintah. Pemerintah pusat dan pemerintah daerah tidak bisa menentukan sendiri kebijakan untuk daerah masing-masing tentang transportasi online ini. Seperti itu. Jadi dialog sudah kami perjuangkan berkali-kali, aksi turun jalan juga sudah, kita sudah berdiskusi dari teman-teman Mbak Nana UGM juga sudah memberikan pandangan dari akademisi ke pemerintah, tetap saja sampai saat ini belum ada kejelasan tentang kami, para driver online. Seperti itu, terima kasih.
Thank you so much, Wuri. And thank you, Taha and Asad as well. I'm going to round off this panel now because we have a few more people that would also like to share their experience. Biju, a very good morning to you. I think you actually have something very nice to share about the possibility that it is possible to negotiate for a minimum tariff for workers. And I see Taha smiling. That means, as he said, there is some inspiration that you guys have given others. Would you like to share with us the successes of what you have achieved in New York, and perhaps also reflect back together with us on why it's so important that we discuss pay in this platform work convention draft? So, Biju.
Absolutely. Hello, everybody. I'm glad to be here. My name is Biju Mathew. I am with the International Alliance of App-Based Transport Workers, and my home union is the New York Taxi Workers Alliance, which is a union in New York City that covers wall-to-wall. It is probably the only union definitely the only union within the United States that has unified the traditional taxi sector, that is yellow taxis and green taxis, with the new ride-hailing sector, which is Uber, Lyft, livery, limousine. So we organize drivers without division, that is across from wall to wall. That is probably the reason why, one of our main reasons why we've had some relative success here in New York. We have had a series of consistent victories against giants such as Uber. I'll simply say the following. One is that in New York, in 2018, we won a legislation which which ensures a minimum floor for all drivers. And it came through what we called a unity platform between the taxi sector and the ride-hailing sector. That is, we went into constructing a unity between the two sectors among the drivers, and then fought the battle on the streets, at the end of which we got a legislation passed through the New York City Council. And what that does is it settles, it produces a formula through which the per mile and per minute rate is calculated at a regular interval at every year. And it is done through a formula that includes the occupancy rate that each platform is able to produce. That is, the occupancy rate being part of the formula ensures that if there are a total number of, let's say Uber, a company has only 60% occupancy, that is, there's a passenger in the back seat for only 60% of the time, then they are forced to pay a certain per mile, per minute rate. If the occupancy goes down, that is, that same company, for various reasons, is able to only put a passenger 50% of the time in the back seat, then the per mile and per minute rate that they have to pay for the drivers goes up. If they're able to increase it to 70%, then technically they can reduce the per mile, per minute rate that they pay to the driver. This formula and its application alongside a cost of living increase, both of these were enshrined in the law, has ensured that New York drivers have stayed whole a little better than most other drivers anywhere else. The important thing to note here is the login to log off time is accounted for because of the occupancy rate formula. Because the longer you have an idle time, the higher the tariff that they have to pay to you is the basic assumption. This alongside, as I said, the cost of living index adjustment every year in terms of what the base rates will be, and finally, a cap on the total number of cars. Unless you put a cap on the total number of cars, these companies have a right to flood the streets with as many cars as is possible, right? So, because they'll make rides on every fare, they'll make money on every fare, whereas the driver has longer and longer idle time between fares. So this has to come as a package. That's one of the ways of thinking about it. The other is, I don't know, I'm looking at models across the world. Right now, one of our affiliates, one of the IATW affiliates, that is IFAT, the Indian Federation of App-Based Transport Workers, has a lawsuit ongoing in the city of Hyderabad in the south, where they are basically saying if there's a taxi sector, like Taha mentioned, if there's a taxi sector and there's a per kilometer rate or a per mile rate that is negotiated between the government and the drivers every year or every 2 years, why is that rate not applicable to drivers, to ride-hailing drivers, right? That's a question that they have asked the court. So that's another ongoing lawsuit, and that's another possible route to take. All of this will get very complicated if Uber and the big companies switch to a new model. Right now, supposedly they're operating on a commission model, and that's not true either. They operate on what's called it's a upfront pricing model, wherein every ride, the commission that they charge off a fare is different. Some rides they're taking 20%, some rides they're taking 60%. So there is nothing called an even commission rate even right now. All of this will get upended with the new subscription model, which is now sweeping across India. The largest in terms of total number of rides, the single largest market in the world. If you really look at what's happening in India, the subscription model is a driver wakes up in the morning, a driver can look at his app and they can decide and say, all right, I'm going to put in 3 hours today, right? So they choose a subscription for 3 hours, 150 rupees for 3 hours, and the app opens for 3 hours. Right now, the subscription rates are kept very low, but we all know where this is going because we've experienced it in the taxi sector all across the world, including New York, wherein there's something called the lease fee. That is, at the beginning of a shift, a driver walks into a fleet and puts down a certain amount of lease fee, and they get the right to drive a car for 12 hours. It's the exact same thing as leasing coming back with a new name called subscription. So you pay, and they'll keep increasing the subscription at some point, and drivers will make no money at all again, right? So if we are going to move to a subscription model, then we really need to rethink how this is all going to work. And the companies are moving ahead with the subscription model. Uber recently put out an advertisement for hiring new product managers to manage the subscription model, right? And the convention itself, I'll finish in 30 seconds. The convention itself, Articles 9, 10, and 11, one divides up the workers. The convention, as it is written, divides workers. It does not unify workers. Article 9 clearly states that minimum wage is applicable only for employees. And it leaves out all independent contractors, self-employed, and literally makes a half-hearted attempt to say it must do something for them. And then Article 11 on Social Security does the exact same thing. So the convention, as it's written right now, divides workers and is not acceptable under any circumstances. We need to think through the subscription model, which means we might have to go back and redefine, do the definitions all over again. Because in the subscription model, remember that in the current model, the payment comes from the company to the worker after deduction of commission. In the subscription model, the company gets the payment from the worker. The worker pays the company for the right to work. Is that even thinkable? right? So those are the big questions we need to ask about the convention. And our own suggestion, IATW's position is, we cannot divide the workers. We cannot, we have to deal with the subscription model. These are the two minimums that IATW is articulating. Do not divide the workers. All workers should have the same rule in terms of the capacity to earn what we call a living standard income. And the second is deal with the confusion being created by the subscription model. Without these two, there should be no convention. And in the case that we can't get there, we should be talking about a standing committee that will really look at this question for the next 3 years and come up with parts of the convention every single year. I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Biju. I'm very happy that you and your whole team are going to Geneva to represent everybody and to ensure that that things get done and hopefully included, and if not, that there is no convention. Thank you for fighting for everybody. Biju, I also want to recognize what you mentioned in your talk about how it's important that what you negotiated, so both the occupation rate and as well as how the tariffs are earned, that this is now in the law. And one important piece of if there will be a convention is that some of these convention pieces will be translated into the law of national countries. And luckily, we have Iftikhar Ahmad with us, who tracks all labor law across the country, or across all countries in the world for us. So Iftikhar, I know you've been working on researching this for a very long time already. And hopefully you can give us a small update on the current state of legislation across a few countries when it comes to regulations and for platform workers, which also might relate to experiences that Biju shared on how actual agreements on pay and regulations might be able to be included. Iftikhar, I'll give you the floor for a small presentation, and then I would like to ask Abdul and Yuana to share some reflections from their perspective before we close off. Iftikhar.
One moment. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
And can you see my screen as well?
Yes. Okay,
wonderful. Hello, everyone. My name is Iftikhar Ahmad. I'm the Global Lead Labor Law at WageIndicator. So I will start with the gaps that the platform workers generally face. There has been loads and loads of research for the last 10 years where the researchers have identified these 5 gaps in the platform work. And we also, in Pakistan, as well as the WageIndicator, started doing work on the platform work in 2018-19. So the first gap that we generally identify is the wage gap. What do we mean by wage gap is that the workers, although they are doing their work all the time and they are spending more than 10 hours doing work with the platform, but they are treated as self-employed. And what it means is that the companies treat them as self-employed workers, and then they don't get access to the minimum wages. The second gap that comes before us is a rights gap. What do we mean by rights gap? If you reclassify an individual as a self-employed worker, you don't have to give them the rights that are generally in the law. Those rights are regarding the minimum wage, the right to leaves, like the annual leave, the sick leave, the right to enjoy the public holidays. Similarly, you don't have to pay the social security contributions. We were looking at the numbers, and it came before us that there's a difference of nearly 60%. If you treat a person as self-employed worker, you nearly have to pay them half. So if you allow really the employers to treat people as self-employed, everyone in the world would like to do that. Limited social protection, as we already heard from different speakers as well, that the platform workers, they lack access to the social protection. Why? Because it relates to a fact that if a platform worker is treated as a self-employed worker, the platform, they don't have to pay the social security contributions. Now, I would like to focus on the draft convention of the ILO and the specific parts that I wanted to talk about, the articles 9 and 10 of the draft convention. So there are a couple of things that it talks about. Article 9 says that every member has to ensure that the platform workers, they are paid their wages full, on time, and in legal tender. But then it specifies certain rights for those who are in a job relationship, those who are not treated as self-employed. And it says that the remuneration that is paid to these platform workers is high enough, and it should be high enough so that it is comparable with the minimum wage in the country. Secondly, it requires the countries to have something in the law so that the platform workers are compensated for the expenses that they are doing. But when it talks about those workers who are generally considered self-employed, it uses the word to the extent possible and as appropriate. I will fully agree with Biju, what Biju said, because I feel the same, that the articles 9 and 10 of the convention, they divide the workers in two, and they say, okay, there's on one part, there's a person who is a self-employed worker, but that self-employed worker has an employment relationship that has certain rights. But then if the person is categorized as self-employed, which all platforms would like to do with everyone that is doing work with them, then it says yes, to the extent possible. But we all know that if the convention does not require something, it would be very difficult for the countries to do that. But the fundamental question is, do we have some examples from the UN covenants as well as from the ILO conventions and recommendations where we can find some example where there is a concept of minimum floor, minimum piece rate, or the fair remuneration? The first one comes from the UN Covenant on the Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, and it says that the state parties to the present covenant recognize the right of everyone. And when they say right of everyone, and then they talk about different rights at the workplace, including the fair wages, a 2016 general comment on the economic, social, and cultural rights says that when the convention talks about everyone, it includes the self-employed workers as well. Similarly, the ILO Recommendation 204, when it talks about the transition from the non-formal to the formal economy, it clearly tells the governments that you have to progressively extend all the rights that are in the law, and which includes the right to minimum payment or to a minimum wage to even the self-employed workers. So what I'm trying to say is that the Covenant on Economic and Social Cultural Rights, its general comment, as well as the Recommendation 204, they already give us the concept for a fair pay, which can be given to the self-employed workers. Now, to our favorite part of where do we find the examples from? We already have heard from Biju that there is rate per hour in the New York City. Then we also have similar rates in Seattle, France. We have a similar rate per hour, but that was through the collective agreements. In Poland, the government says that a general minimum rate is applicable also to the self-employed workers as well. Similarly, we have some examples from Canada as well as from Netherlands as well as from the UK. What it actually shows is that the governments in different countries, as well as the unions and the companies, they have come together to give self-employed workers a rate which is equivalent to the minimum wages in those countries. Yes, then we also have some examples from Germany where there is a tripartite committee which gives the rates for the home-based workers. We also have examples from Pakistan where the minimum wage rates are being set for the home-based workers in Sindh, as well as hopefully in the coming years in KP, as well as in Punjab. So one thing that I would like to focus on is that I always have this view because if you look at the ILO Constitution, it talks about a concept, minimum living wage. And I always think that the minimum wages, they should be raised regularly so that they reach the level of a living wage. So our idea would be that if we use the minimum wages in all these countries and then add to those the costs and the risk borne by the worker, be those in the form of equipment, overhead, taxes, social security contributions, and the waiting time, as well as to consider for the different kinds of leave and the holidays, then you can come up with a minimum tariff. There's I'm hopeful that that can use the great work that has been done by the wage indicator, and we already have a minimum tariff that includes all this information. One last slide that I would like to focus on is that because my focus is on the Article 9 and 10 of the draft convention, the first thing that I would like to say is that the text should change in such a way that it should say that each member shall extend all the rights to the platform workers, even if they are not, in employment relationship, which means that they should have a minimum rate, as well as they should be compensated for the cost that they have to bear. The second thing that is very important is that the rate should include and the rate should apply to all the time that the worker is at the disposal of the platform. What we mean by disposal of the platform is that as soon as the person has logged in and they are ready to work, yes, they can, because yes, it's also a fact that sometimes workers would be waiting for 60% of their total time for the ride or the delivery, but then they can't do anything else. So it's important that the text should consider it, that it should include all the time. The third thing is also important that it should clearly say that the tips are not included in remuneration, because if tips are included, then the companies would say, yes, you have this much money, so we don't have to pay you a minimum rate. Similarly, the fuel, the vehicle, the equipment, and all these things, they should be paid separately from remuneration. But yes, we have these recommendations, but we don't know what will happen in the coming month. So if the text does not change, what can happen? If the text does not change, the countries, to my knowledge, the countries can still use a concept of living tariff or wage indicator. And we have seen examples from different countries that it can be used through the sectoral CBAs, sectoral dialogue. It can also be used by the minimum wage boards. So yeah, because in all the countries there is generally a provision in the law which allows the minimum wage boards to come up with a rate for a new industry. If they would like to set a rate for this new industry, the platform work, I mean, it's doable. because we use the same example and same thought process while talking to the governments from 2021 onwards in Pakistan, and then yes, in all these years, then we were able to convince all the stakeholders, and now we have a law in the name of the labor code. So yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Iftikhar, for this wonderful overview. I really could not have done this better myself. I'm very, very happy with this. I'm very conscious of the time, but I would like to ask both Abdul, from his perspective of the Home-Based Workers Association in Sindh in Pakistan, who is a different type of group than the ride-hailers and other digital workers that we've spoken to earlier, to share his perspective on why the convention is important, as well as Yuana to give us a small reflection on looking at all of these discussions from a gender lens, because I think we have not really touched upon that yet. Yuana, do you want to go first? Please go ahead.
I'll just jump in here quickly to say I unfortunately have to leave.
That's okay,
Yuana,
Biju.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
I won't be able to stay for the rest of it, but I have another call starting in a minute, so I
Thank
have
you,
to hop
Biju.
out.
All power.
Thank you so much,
We're with
everyone.
you.
Yeah, take care.
Okay.
Yuana, go ahead.
Yes, I would like to share my screen. Thank you, Fiona, and hi, everyone. For me, I'm from Department of International Relations at Universitas Gadjah Mada, Indonesia, and today I would like to share more on, as what Fiona mentioned, on gender perspective. And I would also like to, over perspective of a global south, to give our overview on working conditions and maybe something to learn from Indonesian experience. But I think Taha and Mbak Wuri has covered up so much on the empirical material of Indonesian's lessons. So I would like to bring on board of like overview and sort of like reflections on what can we learn from Indonesian's lesson. So first of all, I think I would like to introduce the perspective that I've been using since my research about the gig economy since 2017 until now. I was trying to use this global south lens, not necessarily about geographical locations, but more importantly about how the global south are actually a country or regions that has a colonial histories. And why it really matters, because it allows us to understand there are different contexts and sort of like different epistemology while we're doing research about a country in a global south. For example, for the gig economy, for example, the structure of a post-colonial country is that they're not able to secure access to basic service like a public transportations. So the innovations of ride-hailings really come up to this institutional void and lack of proper public transportations in the country. And usually that's how the innovations then grows in the country. And in terms of the institutions, we look at how in a post-colonial country, there is ill-functioning institutions that protects the privilege of few while undermining the well-being of many. And in the context of platform work, we can see that most of the government are very much work in a clientelist provisions, elitisms, including, and maybe this is also something to inform when we are attending ILC conference, for example, we need to also critically assess who attend the ILC, who represent the platform workers in Indonesia, for example, because I got some report from last year ILC, for example, there are, there is a gap of misrepresentations of who attending the ILSE and speaking in behalf of Indonesians' interests and who are actually experiencing and getting the impact of this platform economy. So in that sense, we also need to understand this sort of like a political gaps on our representations here. So that's why I think in the global south context, my highlight is that we're not only look at what is the mainstream discourse about the risk of manipulation or data theft, but also in the global south, there is a risk of exploitation, exclusion, and deepening of inequalities, particularly in the informal labor sectors. Because in post-colonial countries like Indonesia, more than 50% of the workforce are informal informal workers, meaning that solution of formalizing workers may not be like most fitting solutions for these workers, because before even the platform economy exists, informal labor has been the what's called the default system of labor system in these post-colonial countries. So looking by that, I was trying to zoom in more into how then the global South lens show us a deepening of inequalities. And therefore, I landed to my research about female gig workers in Indonesia, because I think it's not only about adding more element of gender in the research of a platform work, but in this work that I work with the community like Wuri community and all other female gig workers, I argue that the gender nature, understanding the gender nature in these post-colonial countries will allow us to understand the labor process in a more critical analysis. And in most recent publication in this book, I think it was published 2 months ago, Critical Political Economy and Southern Approach to AI, I argue that this analysis of female workers in Indonesia allow me to conceptualize what I call as AI colonialism, which refer to the perpetuation of colonial power dynamic through deployment and control of artificial intelligence technology. So in this book chapter, I somehow give my documentations and research report of working together with Mbak Wuri and her friends, female workers since 2023. And there is some sort of like empirical materials as well in the book chapter showing their everyday experience, everyday discriminations and everyday exploitations they face by working as platform workers. So as I think Mbak Wuri has mentioned before, one of the quoted is that whenever they receive a male customer, they will customizing themselves to ask their male customer permissions. I am a woman, and is that okay with you? So this is something very much discussing about how inequality is very much deepened in a post-colonial context. And then my current research, which I present last week on the International Labor Process Conference, on using a capability approach to understand female workers' conditions in Indonesia and also in India. I think what I'm thinking is that when we want to discuss about living tariff, for example, or living wage for platform workers, I think it's important to also make it contextualized and localized in different contexts. Maybe having a workshop with workers themselves and assessing whether or not the living tariff or something are, already representing their everyday experience. I think in that sense, it will be a great exercise as well. So in my ongoing research, I'm trying to map in both context, Indonesia and India. And mostly Indonesia is for ride-hailing, in India is for beauty workers. We have a different set of research method, but I think even though we have a different set of method and different workers sector, we have a shared patterns. So meaning that it's not only about ride-hailing, it's not about online taxi, but it's about workers who get their jobs from the platform or get their their working conditions decided by an algorithm, for example. So let's say in terms of their capabilities, yes, we need to also recognize that these platforms give them access to provide income opportunities. But again, it doesn't directly translate into a stable, safe, and self-determined livelihoods. And in terms of collective capabilities, we look at how the collective practices emerge among the workers themselves as a coping mechanism. They create this WhatsApp group, Telegrams group to share everyday, informations or everyday solidarity, sharing grievance, and so on. And in terms of conversion factor, what it is interesting is that we have personal conversion factor like care responsibilities, also social conversions factor like the gender norms, stigma, patriarchies, culture in the countries as a conversion factors that shape their capabilities. But what we also want to argue in this work is that there is environmental factors like safety risk, mostly they work outside of their homes, and the algorithmic management as a structural conversion factors, meaning that how the algorithm system is actually part of a conversion factor that incentivizes the constant availability and penalize refusals. That's, I think we have heard it from Taha and Wuri testimony before, that how this algorithm as an invisible boss that penalize their work, including forcing them to work long hours, for example. So in this sense, we argue that algorithmic management as part of a structural conversions that constrain a women's choice. However, I also want to put it in a bit of a hopeful side as well. We also look at their agencies. These women, honestly, I'm witnessing a lot of brave women like Mbak Wuri in the field, for example. I very much admire their exercise of agency, which I think I'm not able to do it myself as well sometimes. But I think these women are very much exercise agency through everyday coping strategies, because this is the only things that they can do, and they have to like struggle for it. Maybe, I mean, even though there is no law to protect them at the moment. So in this sense, we see it, their mechanism or agency are still in an everyday level, but the formal participations remain limited. Again, I think it's very much related to global South context. As what Mbak Wuri has mentioned and Taha mentions before, they have been trying a lot of time to talk with the policymakers, with the applicators, company, for example. But again, this post-colonial context, which really much rely on elitist system, doesn't really, work a lot with this, level of equal bargaining position. We need more pressures to make them hear and make change for the workers. So this is
Joanna.
what.
Can I
yes.
ask you to round off? Because
yes.
we will share, if that's okay, your slides with everybody. So because you have you've developed so many important concepts for understanding how this is happening at the moment, and how platform companies also are able to execute this type of work across the global South. So if you allow us, we would love to share your also the papers that you wrote and your presentation. Maybe you want to round off with one final shout out about why the convention is so important. Go ahead.
Well, I think I will just go to my last slides. Yeah, I think the convention is important because I present this slide. This is our proposed provisions through our Indonesian government. We also trying to advocate national law for platform workers. But again, I also mentioned that this is also these provisions are also part of how we adapt from the ILC draft conventions before. But I think I remember the first response from the Ministry of Manpower is that, why do we need to comply with the ILO? To be honest, that's their first response. And I was told them that my response is that, why do we need to wait for international law to be established and then we follow? This is actually our chance, Indonesians' chance for doing a diplomacy coming from Department of International Relations. My response is that this is also actually also our Indonesians' chance to bargain, to negotiate a global system for more decent and more fair working system for these platform workers. And this is what we bring to the parliament. This is what we bring to the ministry. And hopefully, maybe some of you perhaps also attending the ILC, maybe you can also bring this to the ILC conference. That's all from me. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Joanna. And thank you for all your support also to all the platform-based organizations and unions across Indonesia. I hope you get it done at local level. I will round us off in the next 2 minutes, but I would like to ask Abdul Rahman for one final reflection from your side for the home-based workers in Sindh in Pakistan. If Abdul is still here, I realize we're over time. Otherwise, if not, then I'm going to go round us off. I'm very sorry for running over time, but I am very happy with so much knowledge and a wealth of experience from so many of you, especially you, Taha, Wuri, and Biju, who's no longer here. But it's really an honor to have you guys with us. I also hope that Biju will be screaming on the top of his lungs when he's going to Geneva for all of you. I see Abdul is here. Abdul, if you want to share your final last words before we round off on why for home-based workers, it's just as important to have a convention like this.
My colleague Shariqa in coming. Hello.
Sorry, the connection is really bad.
Hello. मैं उर्दू में बात करूं क्या वो इंग्लिश में ट्रांसलेट हो जाएगा यहाँ पर?
But if we Abdul, if we need a translation, then I'm gonna
Hello,
go
Fiona. Can I add something, please, if you would allow me?
Yes, go ahead. But then, do we need simultaneous translation? Because
Can I share insights on behalf of Mr. Rahman?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. That would be great. So my name is Shariqa. I am from Federation of Sindh Home-Based Workers. Wait, please.
मेरा नाम अब्दुल रहमान है, फेडरेशन ऑफ होम बेस्ड वर्कर्स से मेरा ताल्लुक है.
He's saying that his name is Mr. Rahman and he is from Federation of Sindh Home-Based Workers.
आगे भी आप बात कर लें.
Okay, मैं continue कर लेती हूँ. ठीक है, मैं continue कर लेती हूँ. So Federation, basically, I would like to start with a small introduction of Federation. Our Federation is based in Sindh with over 10,000 workers in Asia, including males, females, and transgenders. And it is the first Federation of South Asia who is currently working on home-based workers. We are engaged through workers and connected to workers through our local unions of stitching, embroidery, Rally workers, and Bengal workers. And currently, I would like to share that the minimum wages, the condition of minimum wages in Pakistan is that it is subcategorized in 4 categories. The minimum wage for unskilled worker, the minimum wage for semi-skilled worker, the minimum wage for skilled, and then the high skilled worker, ranging from 40,000 per month to 51,745 rupees per month. But here the lacking is that there is a very wide gap between the law and its implementation. The basic and the main thing is that there is no inclusion of home-based workers minimum or minimum wage for per piece rate, as the home-based workers are those who work on per piece rate. So the minimum wage for per piece rate is not involved in the law of Pakistan, which is Minimum Wage Ordinance 1961. Rather than this, we also have another act for home-based workers, which is Sindh Home-Based Workers Act 2018. It recognizes home-based workers and gives them security to registration, social security, inclusion, and labor protection. But yet the implementation remains a challenge for the home-based workers. So the lacking, the thing which needs to be improved is the legislation.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Shariqa and Abdul, for sharing this. I hope you can continue fighting for this both in Pakistan as well as internationally. I'm sure there's many in the room who will share the same spirit. I'm very conscious that we ran much over time, but I'm very happy to have all of your inputs for today. Like I mentioned, we will be sharing all of the resources from Yuana's amazing work on colonialist AI systems, which I love. Thank you for that term. For Iftikhar's amazing slides that set aside why it's so important to focus on Article 9, but that there is actually already a lot of legislation out there that you can use for your national advocacy. And please feel free to reach out to the Wage Indicator team if you need information or data on the living tariff or living wages. We're happy to help. And also very happy to do national workshops with gig workers together to actually start negotiating on the minimum tariff. I wish us luck for the upcoming ILC, those that go and negotiate, best of luck. You have the wings of everybody underneath you, the wind under your wings. That's what I wanted to say. Thank you, and we will be in touch. Also, after the ILC, the fight is not over. We will continue supporting everybody with data and information. So stay tuned, and we will be in touch. Thank you for everybody, especially on the Indonesia, Pakistan, India side and Nepal side, to be with us for so late in the evening to accommodate Biju joining us from New York. Have a great rest of your evening and afternoon. Thanks a lot, everybody, and see you soon.
Thank you.